Hello, everyone who's joining us for our session today. Welcome to your 7-step mid-year checklist for re-engaging lapsed donors and increasing donor retention. We have a lot of you filtering in, so we're going to go ahead and get started in the next minute here. But if you are joining, please go ahead and click the chat box at the bottom of your screen and say hello. Let us know your organization, what part of the country you're joining from, and your name so we can see who we have on today. For any of you that are just joining us, today's session will be recorded. So you are going to get a copy of the recorded version of the webinar, as well as a copy of the PowerPoint slides. So you can share this out with your team, go back and review it later to make sure you get an overview of everything that we cover today. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the exclusive session presented by J. Melito and Associates and Arriva, your 7-step mid-year checklist for re-engaging lapsed donors and increasing donor retention. Really quickly, before we get started, I wanted to share with everyone a really exciting event that we have coming up. This is Arriva's annual Driven by Cause Philanthropic Summit. This is a live 2-day event happening on October 16th and 17th. In Boca Raton, Florida. This event is hosted in partnership between Arriva, Florida Atlantic University, and Spirit of Giving. It's going to be a great day made up of keynote sessions from some of the industry's biggest thought leaders, as well as individual breakout sessions. Some of those speakers that we have are listed on this graphic here. We have the head of the Giving USA report, Una O'Sealy, the CEO of Philanthropy Together, the president and founding president and CEO of the Nonprofit Alliance. We have the development officer of Charity Navigator. We're going to be talking about AI with the vice president of AI innovation from Donor Search. We have 2 presidents of the community foundations joining to talk about how to work with them and funders. Susan Packard, who is the co-founder of Arriva and also our CTO, but a prolific philanthropist with years of experience. And then, of course, our own Chris Fink and David Blyer from Arriva. So great names. This is just a sample of who we have attending, but go ahead and scan that QR code to learn more and register. Our early bird rates are now until September 30th. So we hope that you can join us. All right, so getting started, I'm going to introduce our panel. We have Greg Weiner, who is the CEO of J. Melito and Associates. How are you today, Greg?
I'm doing well.
Thanks. We're happy to have you here. And then we have Chris Fink, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Arriva. Thanks for being here today, Chris.
Thanks for putting us together, Gabby. And thank you so much, Greg, for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I look forward to this.
Definitely. And I'm Gabriella Salemi. I'll be your moderator for today, and I am the Director of Marketing here at Arriva. So getting started, we wanted to start by asking some poll questions from the audience. We would like to know, are you currently pleased with your donor acquisition, retention, and engagement? We'll give you some time to let those answers come in. All right, so interestingly, we have 78% of you who are not pleased with donor acquisition, retention, and 22% of you who are pleased. Next question we would like to know, because this webinar is all about mid-year strategy and planning. Do you have a mid-year strategy already in place to get ready for that end of year? And if you do have a mid-year strategy in place, we're going to give you some great ideas today to maybe expand upon that, or maybe some things that you missed or haven't thought of before. All right. So looking at the results, 54% of you do have a mid-year strategy in place, which is great to see, and 46% of you do not. And it's not too late to get going on that. All right, and I will pass it over to Greg to kick us off.
Well, welcome everybody. Greg Weiner, as Gaby said, that I'm with J. Molino Associates. Want to talk about how to and the timing that we're at here in September. We've kind of come out of the summer, and people are back into more of their normal routines, and this is the best time to get going with those donors and re-engaging them in some fashion. It's preparing for the end of the year, really, right now, believe it or not. So that's the actions that we want to talk about today and give you some 7 steps to kind of take a look at so that you can prepare for this and also make it a good habit. You're trying to create a habit both for your organization and for your donors as well. So 7 steps. The first one is really it's talking about your donor data. And I know Ariva had a webinar here a little while back talking about donor data as well and the accuracy of it. And we can't talk about this enough. I mean, if your donor data is inaccurate in some fashion, you're going to be reaching out to people that either aren't there anymore or you can't get a hold of. So the accuracy of that data is really important. I mean, we are constantly talking about scrubbing the data, making sure it's right, updating it. It goes anywhere from doing address NCOAs for address updates to people are dropping landlines. It's getting cell phones in there. So it's constantly looking at that stuff to help clean the data. The other thing that a lot of people don't think about is, even deceased individuals. There's ways to go out there and scrub your data for people that have passed away so that you're not continually sending stuff to them or trying to reach them if they've since passed. So it's really, really a key thing in this is to have good, accurate data so that you can go back and continue to engage with these folks and re-engage with them so that you're retaining and building your donor base. Chris, I think you have a few things to talk about here.
Oh yeah, I could talk all day about that, Greg. I mean, I see, I'm sure you see it too. I mean, Greg's firm offers these data cleansing and data verification services, which really, using these third-party companies to be able to take a database like ours and do that is incredibly valuable. Like you said, Craig, appending deceased information and missing phone numbers and emails, validating addresses and NCOA, right? Seeing if people have moved and updating their addresses through that, which is incredibly helpful. And like you said, this is a great time of year to do it, right? Just because you sort of right before the busy season and before you're doing a lot of outreach to your prospects and your donors and your constituents. But I just can't, I could like what the biggest issue that I see both with organizations coming to us looking for a solution, to get out of their existing solution or solutions and move into ours, or even our existing clients, the biggest issue I see is data integrity. And a lot of the issues that I see are just really inconsistent data entry. The database has gone through multiple hands, multiple people, and each one of them entered data slightly differently. So it's inconsistent and it's not terribly reliable. And it's really hard to undo that once you've gone down that path. So really, I always encourage people to make sure, and I know this takes a little time, but it rewards you in spades, is really to create some sort of documentation about how data goes into your donor data goes into your database. So that way, when you report on it, when you need to create a mailing list for a big solicitation, whatever your needs are from that data, you'll be able to get it. Because if it's not accurate, it's going to be really hard to fix it after the fact. There's a lot of clients who we deal with who they wait till they need to get the day they need to get that mailing list to their mail house for that massive solicitation they're doing around the holidays, and by then it's too late because they have messy data. So now there are ways to mitigate that. Greg's firm offers a lot of services around that. There are tools within the solutions you have and in our solution as well to mitigate those data issues like duplicate checking, which we do have a utility that you can run against all the database records in our database to find those duplicates and merge them together. But there's also other tools that you can use, and which if you go to the next slide, Gabby, I'll just talk a little bit about it. You know, like there is a tool that like I say, that we have a duplicate checking tool. A lot of solutions out there have them, but really what you want to do is mitigate duplicates before beforehand. You don't want to you don't want to introduce duplicates into your database and send three different, send the three of the same mailings to the same household, right, and waste money, and also it leaves a bad impression for the donor too. So there are ways to mitigate dupes, and the biggest vector for duplicate records that I've seen is when you're getting data from external sources and bringing them into your database of record through either importing or through integrations that you have with online fundraising systems, et cetera. So really you have to, having an integrated system will help with that, like Ariva's. But there's also ways to mitigate that during the process of, let's say you're using a separate event application to manage your auction and you need to get all those transactions into your donor database. Do you have a way to import those records where the importer will check to make sure those records are, if they're already in the system, it will just add those transactions to the existing records so you don't create duplicates. And for your online fundraising platforms, are those integrated so that when you bring them in, it's checking to see if those records already exist, et cetera, because that's the biggest vector, and Ariva has that. So really, hopefully you have some systems in place to mitigate those problems. And there's also other tools that you can use as well to maintain that data integrity. You know, does your solution allow you to archive certain attributes you attach to your donations so that you're only using a certain group of funds that you attach to your gifts, or appeal, right? I've seen clients have come to us, they have 3,000 appeal codes that they're only using a half dozen of them, right? Can your solution allow you to not see 3,000 appeal codes when you're entering a gift and just see the 6 that you should be using? And does your system allow you to require certain attributes to be attached to certain constituent records or gifts so that before you save that record, you have to make sure that you're applying those data points to those records? Because if not, you're potentially going to introduce data inconsistency into your database. So having the tools available within the solution, but also having processes documented to keep and maintain that data integrity is hugely important.
Yeah, just to kind of add to what Chris just talked about, that data protocol, that format in the database to make sure that the address information, the phone numbers, all that stuff is formatted the same way for everybody. Because anytime it varies all over the place is where it causes problems down the line.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. You just reminded me too, Greg. You know, for example, not just like I say after the fact doing NCOA certification like through a firm like yours, Greg, but also when in our system, when you enter a new record, you enter the address, you can hit a button, it'll actually validate that address to make sure it's accurate, it'll append the 9-digit zip, et cetera. So having those tools available within your solution to ensure as the data is coming in that it is accurate and valid. Yeah.
Yeah, the next thing, step 2 here, is to talk about segmentation of donors, because not all donors are the same. I think everybody knows that. I mean, you may have received or a one-time gift from a donor that was at an event, and how those folks are different than somebody that's a continuous annual donor is key, because you want to approach those folks in different ways. You know, that one-time event donor that came with a friend to the event and they gave a gift, you know, how do you work with those folks to try to get them to become an annual and regular donor versus continuing to have that connection with those annual donors, those people that have given to your mission year after year after year. You want to make sure that you understand how those different groups work with each other, and how to tailor the outreach to them as well, because it's not always the same. The message that you give to them is different. Even larger donors, you know, majors in some ways, the notification to them is going to be different, and how you work with them is different than maybe a mid or a lower level donor. They're all important, they all contribute, but the message is definitely probably different between all of them. Chris, you could talk about how your system there analyzes and helps with that segmentation.
Yeah, no, I mean, and you're spot on, Greg. I mean, it's so important to have, and we've talked about this on some of our other webinars, even just our last one, Gabby, right? With sort of generational giving. There's so many different ways to slice and dice your prospects and your donors, but one is through having accurate data about them. But really, the reason why that's important is allow you to be precise in how you're targeting them, researching and segmenting them, and to ensure that you're focusing your resources on the high potential donors, maximizing your ROI. And you don't want to ask someone for $20 when they can give you 20,000, right? And how do you suss those records out? How do you do that segmentation? One is what we talked about already, regarding quality data. And the other is you can append data, through Greg's firm. Like I said, he can ensure data integrity to a certain extent. And there's also services. So we have an integration with a company called Donor Search that allows you to create scoring for each one of your donors about what's their capacity to give, what's their inclination to give to an organization like yours, and a bunch of other attributes that you can attach. And so through that, you can see, oh, this person who's been giving us $20 a year actually has the potential to give us a lot more. And that's where you segment those donors out. Okay, those people, I'm going to do some personal outreach to them to see if I can get more money from them versus the people who, through our research, we think are only going to give us X number of dollars, and we'll do a mass email to them. So being able to really know who you might want to create a valuable personal connection with, and fostering that trust and loyalty with them to get the larger donations versus some that you may just are going to do, reach out to them through digital channels and et cetera. So really expanding your reach in different ways into different targeted people. And then really sustaining that engagement. Like, how do you sustain those donors? We've talked about this all the time. It's expensive to get a donor, and to keep them is important too, and to understand how much they're giving, how often they're giving, why they're giving, et cetera, is important to be able to communicate to them in a way to keep them engaged as well, right?
Yeah. So there's always warning signs too. So what we've noticed over time is that if you're looking at your history, your donor base, and you're seeing groups of people that are kind of dropping off and giving, haven't given in a couple of years, what is causing that? Some of that goes back to those data scrubs again. Have these folks moved away? If it was primarily an organization that people around the area, local to them, are the ones that are givers, have people moved out of that area, that their address is different now. Are they deceased? I think in some ways, if you're looking at age-wise too, are they aging out? All of those kinds of things can be going back to that data scrub again. You can find those things out and help keep your donor database up to date on why some of them aren't giving. Are they a one-time gift? Again, back to that they came to a golf event. So, that was what they gave to. They played golf and that was it. But it's how do you keep them and get them close again? So, but it's watching that history, that donor history of giving and stuff, and the last time that they gave and when they gave and what they gave for. So
Yeah.
are they skipping things? Were they always are going to events and suddenly they're not? Again, why? Why aren't they coming? So
Yeah.
it's always looking for those warning signs.
Yeah. Yeah, no, super. Yeah, I totally agree. And even just that first bullet you have there, Greg, watching for fewer responses. That sounds simple, but if you don't have the right platform in place to really know that your constituents are not responding to your outreach, how do you know that, right? Is your system allowing you to track the outreach, whether it's through standard mail or through email or through texting? And if they do respond to, let's say, an email solicitation, do you know that? Are they even clicking through it? Are they actually are you converting them when you send out that email and actually giving? And having that data is really important, and having a solution that makes it easy to track that is important as well, right? And then being able to analyze that data, like you have the second bullet, shorter giving histories. How do you know that their giving history is shorter? Are you able to look at your donors through that lens of recency, frequency, and size, right? Can you run reports and see what people's how often they've given over a 5-year period? Have they given consistently year to year over a 5-year period? You should have reports that are very easy to give you that information, right? And then find out if they skipped an event like you have too in here, Greg, right? So having the accurate data, but also having a solution that's going to allow you to surface that information easily is key. And then we do have some clients that actually have surveyed their constituents to get information about them and capture that when they fill out a form to know what their communication preferences are. That's a huge one, especially for generational giving, like we talked about last week, Gabby, right? With regards to their generationally, but also personally, some people prefer to get email, some people prefer to get text, some people prefer standard mail. And some people prefer to give differently, right? Overwhelmingly, boomers love to give through through standard mail, sending in a check. The younger generations, not so much. They're doing everything on their phone and they're giving online, et cetera. So having multiple ways to give and understanding how those people want you to engage with them is important, so that when you do those year-end solicitations and event invitations, et cetera, you're communicating with the way they want to be communicated with and giving them options to engage with you and to buy those event tickets and to give in the ways that they want to do it as well, right? And then once they become donors, we have this bullet here about stewardship and relationship building. Once they become donors for you or attend an event, like Greg said, how do you keep them coming, right? There's often a lot of people will attend an event and you'll never see them again. How do you keep them engaged? How do you convert them into a donor? Do you have a strategy for that? Because it really is about building trust and those long-term relationships. Like I said, it's expensive to acquire them, and understanding them and anticipating their concerns, recognizing their loyalty is very important to that retention. And retention, I know, like we saw earlier, a lot of organizations are struggling with, right?
So reactivate with the personal outreach. I mean, obviously, J. Molina and Associates, our primary outreach is by phone. I mean, we call, I mean, we have a call center and we believe in the personal touch. And the personal touch, other than meeting them face to face, is talking to them on the phone. We believe that's the primary and the most effective way as well. If you can get somebody on the phone, you can engage with them, you can have a conversation with them. You can tell by their tone, how they're answering questions, how they're receiving the phone call, what their thoughts are, and they can give valuable feedback as well. There are the other outreach methods. I mean, that's the way of the world today. Text messages, the mail, United States Postal Service, and email. Every one of them has their pros and probably their cons. I mean, with text messages, if you don't have an accurate phone number, if that phone can't receive a text message, it's not going anywhere. Mail, I mean, lots of organizations do mail. I mean, we all get tons and tons of requests for donations by organizations in the mail. So we're all flooded with that. Email, if they're in your database, there's a good chance it's going to go through, but you never know because it could land in the spam or the junk folder. So you almost have to try to use multiple approaches. You can't just use one, and we encourage that. Besides phoning, we have the ability to do texting as well. We believe in the mail too as follow-up. So you got to have multiple contact points and touch points for these folks so that you're making sure you're reaching them. No one solution does it all. But again, we believe in the personal touch. When we call, we're not an auto dialer. Somebody picks up the phone, there's a warm voice at the other end immediately talking to them. We're not waiting for some kind of a connection to happen with a computer. That's how we believe the approach needs to be, and we think it's the most effective way of doing it. So again, multiple approaches. One of them is sure to get through, and it's ways to reactivate and continue to engage with donors and supporters of the organization.
Yeah, totally agree, Greg. Yeah, and that you can't just send out an email blast and hope they reply. You do have to communicate in different ways, and hopefully you already know how they want to be communicated with. But even then, I my inbox gets flooded. I sometimes I miss stuff. You do have to you have to keep communicating with them in multiple ways for them sometimes just see it. And, you know, reactivating lapsed donors can be very valuable. Like we talked about already, it's expensive to acquire a new donor, and perhaps there was someone before you who didn't engage enough with your donors, and you saw huge attrition last year in your donors. You can reactivate them. You just have to make them feel that it's worth their while, and that you have to demonstrate your appreciation for them in different ways. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that, like you've said, Greg, through the different types of outreach. Also, you could segment your donors out to the important ones. You could send handwritten notes to. You could make personal phone calls from leadership or board members to express your gratitude. I have a client who did this and had great success through just holding a donor appreciation event. And reactivated quite a few lapse donors through that. I had another client who they had the facilities that they did tours of that they offered and had great success with that. So there are ways to not only connect with existing donors and potential new ones, but also reactivating those lapses, right? And then you have to measure it, right? You have to make sure that you're actually tracking this information in a way and have a solution in place that's going to allow you to very easily see who I reactivated, you know, who is lapsed. That should be a fairly simple process in your solution. If it's not, you should talk to us because it isn't ours. And then recognition is huge. I can't talk about that enough, and we're going to talk about recognition on the next slide. But timely recognition as well as expressing gratitude in different ways is important, which we can get to the next slide, Gabby.
Yeah. So, I mean, as Chris kind of led into here, I mean, the power of a gratitude to a donor is just huge. I could probably talk about this quite a bit. I mean, gratitude outreach. I mean, and you can do it lots of different ways, as we've already talked about. But again, we believe the most powerful way is a person to a person. So through a phone call, if you can't do it face to face, through a phone call of reaching to a donor and saying, thank you for your gift is very, very powerful. We have a number of clients that we do their campaign for them, we raise the money, and then we follow it up with a thank you call to those donors. And it's always amazing to us that donors, when you talk to them on the phone and you're not asking for a gift, you're only saying thank you on behalf of that organization, how they react to that. You mean you're not asking for money? No, we just want to say thank you for your recent gift. In some cases, in many cases and in all cases, it keeps them engaged. In some cases, we've seen where they give another gift, which is surprising. If we can't talk to them on the phone, we always leave a message. We leave a message on their voicemail, and there are times when we have those donors call us back saying, thank you for calling me and giving me that nice call, thanking me for the gift. So, besides sending out that letter that thanks them and stuff, that powerful thank you call leaves them with an impression that they're important no matter how much money they gave. They're important to that organization. And those donors tend to stay close with those organizations. That's the history we've seen over time. So those live calls, those follow-up letters, all that gratitude going to those donors all the time is what helps. That's another connection that helps keep them engaged, retained. And as Chris talked about, it's hard to go acquire one. So you always want to keep the ones that are donating to you close because they're hard to reattain, and it's hard to acquire new ones. So you want to keep those folks close in many, many ways. And that thank you, that gratitude is always a powerful way.
Yeah. That's a really good point, Greg, especially that first bullet, the thanking donors with no ask. When you're a donor and the only time you hear from an organization is when they're asking for money, you don't feel appreciated, right? So that's a huge one. And then timeliness, right? I unfortunately, we had a client that I was at recently. It was around Christmas time last year, and I was helping them out, and they lost a huge donor, someone that gave them over $30,000 every year around Christmas time, because they weren't getting their thank you letters out in a timely way, and this person didn't get thanked at all. So that should be an easy, I wouldn't say easy, but not a very onerous process for you. And if your solution can't make that less onerous for you, then you need to look for a solution that's going to make it easy to be able to be timely about your acknowledgments, because that's incredibly important, right? And then the personalization, right? The thank you send out for a gift in memory versus, Giving Tuesday gift versus, a gift to support your endowment or whatever it is, they should be personalized. You shouldn't have a single, gift acknowledgement letter template. You should have multiple, and they should all be geared towards the type of gift you're getting. And that, again, that should not be an onerous thing for you to be able to do and to manage, and to be able to, as gifts come in, assign the type of letter that you want to send out. And that could be an email, it could be a printed letter, it could be SMS, text, whatever, right? That should be a fairly straightforward process for you. And then sending out content too, like Greg said, that there aren't asks attached. I just got one this week that was great from a client that I donate to, and it was just simply an email with a visual infographic and some text about the impact that the donors have made, the individual donors have made to their organization, and where that money's going and how it's being used. And it was not very long. It was easily digestible. You can see in here, there's a screenshot too from another client, Boys and Girls Club of Salt Lake, who also did a great job on their impact report and put it on their website. But sharing, where's my money going? How is it being used? And it makes me feel more connected. It makes me feel like, hey, I'm making a difference. There's a lot of reasons why that's important. So there are many ways to express gratitude. There's obviously a lot more than we've talked about, but it's very important.
So start now. I mean, if you haven't started already getting things engaged, start now. I mean, we're in September, mid-September, and we're what, 3.5 months away from the end of the year. So start warming up those donors now, for those appeals that are going to be coming out. We have clients that start acting at the end of August and get things going. So you're trying to, as it talks about, boost your year-end response rate. So you got to start engaging folks now and start warming them up to those appeals, those asks, those needs that you'll have as an organization. It's a matter of continuous preparation for this. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. But it's not waiting. Don't wait, act now. It's imperative for every organization. We're out of that summer time frame. August is behind us. We're in where we talked about earlier, where people are back into their routines. Kids are in school, that kind of activity, and so it's a little bit normal, and they expect some of that stuff to start showing up now. So
Yeah.
This is the time to act.
It is. Greg, I just heard someone tell me it was 100 days till Christmas, which was, wow, shocking. But it is time. You got Giving Tuesday coming up. I think it's December 2nd this year. There's many ways that you can start preparing, setting up those donation pages to support those different campaigns. We have a whole peer-to-peer giving platform that all of our clients get to use with our product that is really, in my opinion, a great way for donor acquisition, to acquire new donors, but also to allow your existing donors to really share with their network of people through social media, et cetera, a way to support your organization. And that could be through a Giving Tuesday campaign. It could be, maybe you have a capital campaign coming up, or an endowment campaign, or just an annual campaign at the end of the year. You can, if you have a solution like ours with peer-to-peer giving, it's not that difficult to really get it up and running. Send it out to your constituents who are already donors, and let them use it as a way to share out through their social media, et cetera, to really spread that message out, and to support your organization through that. It really is huge. And I think the stats are about 20% of donors will refer another donor through peer-to-peer giving. So it really can help with donor acquisition. As well as just get that message out. And these things do sometimes take time to get into place and to bring awareness to it. You can't just build it and they will come. You have to have a coordinated effort around getting awareness of these campaigns and of these efforts. And that's through those channels we talked about earlier. So you do want to start thinking about this now, strategizing, preparing, and like you said, you're just warming those donors up for the holiday appeals, right?
Yes. Finally, it's to create a repeatable system, a process by which you're doing it repeatedly over and over again, creating a habit. If you're not familiar with it, a gentleman by the name of Jim Collins, who's a business writer, talks about a flywheel that businesses need to use in order to create growth and sustain growth as an organization. The same thing applies to nonprofits. I mean, you need to have a sustainable, repeatable process in which you're doing over and over and over again to create a good system by which you're fundraising. I always view fundraising, no matter what type you do, whether it's a letter or a phone call, a campaign of some type, it's a journey. It's not a one-time event. Yeah, you're doing that campaign at that time, but you're planning them over and over and over again. And that's where we see the greatest success of organizations we work with are the ones that do it repeatedly. Not only are they training themselves on what they're doing, but they're also training their donors on what's happening. So if I'm a donor to an organization and I always give in the springtime, I'm going to get that contact in the spring, whether it's a phone call or something. It's timed around me as the donor. And if you do it over and over and over again with those, that's how you're going to get success and continue to repeat that cycle over and over again. We have some organizations that do campaigns 3 times a year because that's when their donors, those different donors, are giving. So they do it again and again and again, and they just see absolute success because their repeatability is there, their process is there, and they've created a habit within their organization and a habit with the donors. We've got some donors that are always expecting our phone call in the fall. They know when we're going to call. They tell us, we were waiting for your call. Here's what we're giving to this organization. It's creating that rhythm over and over again so that it's a habit and you're using all the tools that you have available to you, the accurate database, the information that you can use, customizing things to those donor types, those segments and stuff. It's repeating it over and over and over again. Part of it is also trying to migrate some of these donors. As Chris talked about, some of them have greater capacity. We find over time that as we're contacting people, yeah, maybe they gave $100 a year to an organization, but suddenly they have we find out they have greater capacity and they're making major donations to those organizations. It's the habit of continuing to stay connected with those folks that create those opportunities.
Yeah, totally agree. All right.
Um,
Yeah, go ahead, Gabby.
Really quickly, we have a lot of great questions that are coming in. If you have any questions, please make sure to submit them in the Q&A box and the chat box, and we are going to answer every question. We just have a few more slides for you, so stay tuned.
All right, thanks, Gabby. Yeah, well, I'm excited to get to the Q&A. Just a real quick, I'll do an intro of who Arriva is, who we are, and then I'll let Greg talk a little bit about his firm and what he does. Arriva's been around for over 35 years. We've got over 6,000 clients. We have our software is built exclusively for the nonprofit industry. It's primarily a donor relationship management system, but we do a lot of other things, and I'll show you in a second. But we have a lot of national partners we're aligned with. We have over 70% of Ronald McDonald House Charities are using us. We have a variety of children's charity, Boys and Girls Club, all sorts of organizations of different types and sizes. If you go to the next slide, Gabby, and the reason they usually are coming to us, not always, is that they are having challenges, right? Typically our clients on average are using 4 different solutions to manage their donors and their events and their fundraising efforts and their volunteers, et cetera. And they have limited to no integration around those different applications. They're not automated. It's costing them a lot of money to maintain them, and really they're coming to us to looking to use one system that's integrated so they can really have that holistic view of who their constituents are and do exactly what we were just talking about earlier in terms of segmenting their donors, et cetera. So if you go to the next slide, Gabby. And really the way we address those issues is with our solution. It's an all-in-one donor relationship management system. You can see I won't go through all these bullets. There's a ton of functionality in here, from just, basic constituent management, managing your donations, but also there's a whole communications module. We have a reporting module where you can manage events and memberships and volunteers and your campaigns and your grants, etc. Your auctions. We have a whole digital fundraising platform for online giving. You can see you can track basically any type of donation, take any donation online that you want. Peer-to-peer platform, team fundraising, etc. So if you have any needs around that, please let us know. And here's just a visual representation of all those different things that we do. And I'll pass it to first. You're going to ask a question.
Yeah, if you would like to have a personalized consultation about your needs and Ariva's software and solutions, please go ahead and hit yes, and someone from our team will be in touch with you.
Yeah, so our J. Molino Associates, we're helping, and we're here to be an extension of nonprofit organizations. I mean, we're here to carry your message to your donor base, your supporters, and keep them connected. As I talked about before, our primary service is using the phone. We do texting as well, but it's to keep your donors close and keep them connected, keep the organization in front of them, have your message relayed to them in a positive way, and be an extension to help keep them donating to your organizations. I mean, we have our return on investment to our clients is anywhere from $3 to $5 for every dollar that they spend with us. I mean, we're here to give you a good return so that we can raise funds for your organization, so you can continue to do your mission and ministry to those that you service. And we do the personal touch. We hand dial every call. We don't use computers to generate those, so that when somebody picks up that phone, there's an immediate connection. They're talking to somebody, they're talking to a live person. And we're here to carry that message forward, and be a partner with you and walk alongside you as you go through this. We've been around for 30 years. We're across the country, help a lot of different types of organizations, anywhere from faith-based organizations to schools, colleges, universities, seminaries, arts and human service organizations. So we have a broad perspective of clients, and we tailor every client's need to theirs, and to make sure that that message is carried, because we know it's not one size fits all. So that's us. I mean, I'm afraid we're going to start running out of time. So
yeah, if you'd like to learn more about J. Molino and Associates, there is a poll up on your screen. Go ahead and hit yes, and we will send that over to Greg, and someone from their team will be in touch with you. All right, so we have a lot of great questions in our Q&A, and I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Pull these up. All right, so we spoke about surveys in the beginning of the webinar, and this question comes from Lisa. She wants to know, when you do a survey, is it anonymous? If not, do you link it to the contact on the CRM? Seems like the response will be higher if the survey is anonymous, but it would be nice to be able to understand the individual.
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, and Gabby, you're the marketing expert, so maybe you can add some color to this, but because we've done surveys internally too. I mean, typically, when we send out surveys to our clients, we know who they are when they come back in. We get their information and we attach it to their contact record. There are sometimes anonymous surveys we've sent out where we feel like we'll get more feedback if we make it that way. But relative to the discussion we were having earlier, that the idea would be you are sending out surveys. Let's say you send a survey, hey, we want to update our records. Is this data that we have on you, your name and email and address current? And also, please let us know how you want to be communicated with. Do you want our newsletter? Do you want solicitations, etc.? if you're going to ask questions like that, that's going to drive obviously whether it's going to be anonymous or not, because that's obviously not an anonymous survey. There's sometimes where the feedback you're getting might be a little more sensitive, and people may be hesitant to be as honest as you'd like. And in those cases, Gabby, I think we've actually done either fully anonymous or allowed them to not have to give their information when they do reply, right? For certain
Yeah.
surveys.
And just to also, I think the benefit of having surveys not be anonymous is you have donors or folks that they want their name to be known and they're invested in giving their feedback. That's something I've seen as well too. And they're passionate about, letting you know who they are and, what their thoughts are. But I haven't really seen a correlation to anonymous and when it's
Okay.
not anonymous in my experience. Next question is about communication preferences. Isn't it partly too about knowing which donors work best with certain communication preferences depending on what they prefer? So how do you put in place a donor's communication preferences with how you're reaching out to them in regards to phone calls or written notes or things like that?
You mean beyond just knowing what their preferences are? Is that what the
Yeah,
question's asking? Okay.
yeah. I think this person's asking, how do you blend, let's say, personal outreaches like phone calls with what a donor's preferences are? Should you be reaching out via the phone?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
well, yeah, I mean, Greg, you call people through your firm all the time, so you probably have a lot more insights than I do. But
Yeah.
I think there are some cases where uh, let's say a donor says, I prefer to get your whatever. I'm about the environment. I don't want your printed newsletter. Send me an email of that. I'm fine, right? Giving people the preference to choose in that case. Now, however, if someone gives you $10,000 and says, I want your, newsletter and email format, doesn't mean you shouldn't reach out to them personally and thank them for that donation. And I think they would appreciate it. Now, of course, sometimes there's anonymous gifts where you wouldn't do that. It's not appropriate. But I feel like anyone would want a personal outreach if they're giving at least what you consider a significant donation to your organization, right? So I think there's a lot of kind of dependencies there about how to answer
Yeah.
that. But Greg, please, you can
Yeah, I
cover
mean,
too.
I think that's really true. I mean, one of the things that we do is if we're contacting donors and they tell us, especially if it's the first time we've ever done it, they say, I really don't want to be called. I love text messages or emails or by mail. We note that back to the organization so that we're not, because you don't want to be repeatedly calling somebody or texting them or sending them emails if that's not the way that they want to be communicated with. So it's a matter of finding that and then making sure within the system that the organization uses that's documented. They're either on a do not call list or they're on a do not mail list or whatever it might be, because you want to be able to make sure that you're communicating with them in the way that they want to be communicated with. And so we find that stuff out, in many ways when we're going through it, especially if it's the first time we've called for organization. We got one client that a lot of their people do text messages. They want a text message instead, so it can vary, but it's a matter of honoring that donor's wish and having a way to document it.
Hmm.
This question comes from Joy. With a personal approach, how many MGOs versus the size of the nonprofit organization do you recommend?
Hmm. Well, I'm not an operational expert, efficiency expert in nonprofits, but I assume MGO means major gift officer. But I don't know if I could answer that honestly. I'm not an expert in that area, but I do have worked with many clients who, it to me it seems, and Greg, maybe you can add more to this. That it's not necessarily the size of the organization by revenue or the type. It seems to really be more about how many individual donors do you have. I mean, we have a lot of clients coming to us right now that have relied way too much on grants and government money and are huge revenue size, but have very small individual donor bases and are trying to build that up to be a healthier organization in general. So, they may have one development director and that's it, right? And they're really trying to build out that individual donor base. I've seen other, like we have a local community college that has multiple major gift officers because they've got a huge individual donor base, and they've segmented their donors into different groups based on types of giving and who they are. And then they're assigned to separate gift officers, and then they're managed by them almost like account management, right? So I think it really depends on more a factor on the size of your individual donor base and the size of the organization itself. But again, this is all through my experience, and I'm not a consultancy like Greg's that might come in and actually help you with that. I don't know, Greg, if you
Yeah.
have any more information on that.
I think you kind of nailed it there, Chris. It really depends on the organization, how big the organization is, how big their donors are. I mean, it varies across our clients on how many major gift officers there are. Some of them, we've got a couple of them that have several major gift officers, to some organizations that don't have any.
Yeah.
Or the development director is the major gift
Yeah,
officer. I mean, it's just
exactly.
because of the size of the organization. I mean, we try to work with our clients, especially if we're going to be doing like a call campaign or something, by looking at who they want us to call. And if we see some large donors in that data, we'll go back and question them to say, do you really want us to make that phone call to this person? They gave $10,000 the last time. Or do you want to contact that person for a gift? So we try to help, especially organizations that don't have a lot of people to help through this, to make sure that they're approaching those people the right way. Getting a phone call from one of our callers that's on our staff, it may not be the best way to approach somebody that gave $10,000, as an example. That might be a call from the development director instead. So it really varies across various organizations. So you kind of got to work through all that depending on that organization. Hopefully that answered the question too.
Couple questions here, Chris, about Ariva's software Exceed Further. Does your software have a wealth screening connected to it? And does Ariva have an easy way to track communication preferences?
Yeah, we do. We partner with several prospect research firms. If you have a subscription with them, yes, we don't charge for integration; it's free. But you can pull prospect research information in two different ways. One is I can go to a donor profile or prospect record. We call them households or organizations, and I can click a button. It will go grab the key information from the prospect research company and pull it into our database and show it on the screen of that donor right there. So the propensity to give, capacity, a bunch of other data points. And there's also a button on there to link out to the donor. Like we use donor search. It'll take you to the donor search website and give you more information if you want to use it that way. We also have a way of bulk updating prospect data by sending. We have a predefined file that you can send. You can decide what group of prospects / donors you want to send to the prospect research company. It's in a format that they can accept. They'll then send back a file that has all of the scoring and prospect research data attached to it. And then you can just bring that into our system with a click of a button and update. It could be 100, it could be 100,000 records very easily. So you can bulk update as well as individually update, yes, through our application. And then the tracking preferences, yes, we do have a bunch of different types of identifiers for communications. Are they okay to solicit? Are they okay to mail? Okay to email? Okay to text? You can create additional fields too if you want. A lot of people will put those check boxes on their forms, like donation forms, et cetera. We have a donor portal too, where you can put that there. And so it's to allow you to bring that information in and update it for you automatically. So you can give them the option when they're giving or when they're submitting any of our forms and bring that information in. So we do have those identifiers. Yeah.
This question comes from Michelle. With thank you emails being used so much more, I still believe that a personalized letter from organizations is still important with a handwritten note. What are your thoughts? Do you think those should go to every donor, no matter the gift amount? Who also gets an email thank you? Should that be for a certain amount as well?
You want me to go with that, Greg, or do you want to try first?
I mean, I think everybody needs to be thanked. So whatever method works the best. Now, I think you probably, as long as it's a personal letter, in some cases, even if it's a smaller amount, I think it can lead to a big impact because again, you may have somebody that has a greater capacity to give. And that personal thank you, I think makes a difference. I mean, just a simple note on a letter that's printed off with the person's name on it. I mean, I know I've given to some organizations, and in some cases they're not huge gifts, but yet I'm getting a personal letter back and it's signed by somebody of importance. And it makes a big difference to donors. And
Mm,
you can never know when you might discover somebody that's put somebody into their will or estate, even though they've only given $50 a year to the organization. Suddenly they pass away and somebody gets a phone call and says, hey, you're in their estate plan. So
mm,
that the impact can be there. It just may not be immediate, but it may be
yeah.
long term.
And I think you need to make sure that you create processes that are sustainable by you. So I I don't want to say you shouldn't thank every donor individually, but I do think that could become quite onerous and there could be opportunity costs with that at a certain point once you have a large enough individual donor base where you just that's all you do, right? After once you start getting enough donations flowing in, which hopefully is the case. I have received what look like personalized thank yous when I give sometimes, and it's really just they have a pre-printed little card in there they put that's from the executive director. It looks like it's handwritten, but it's not, which was a nice touch, but it's not as personal. I've seen I just had an organization where she used a reporting automation to set up a report that just gets sent through our system to her every Monday, to the executive director of all gifts that are over $200, and it just lands in her inbox every morning. It's got all the information on it. She just writes a handwritten note to them, and then someone sends them out for her. So, you could have a threshold, in terms of gift size, right? That where so that you don't create a process that become too onerous over time. But I don't know if that helps, but
Yeah.
This next, it's not really a question, but I think it's worth bringing up because, Chris, one of the biggest things we see here is how our clients have increased board engagement with peer-to-peer. So
mm,
this person says, our board is crickets, so peer-to-peer is
mm,
not an option. I've heard of monthly donors putting out challenges on Giving Tuesday on social media.
mm.
Do you want to talk a little bit about how an integrated peer-to-peer works versus a social media peer-to-peer, and also how to get those board members involved in it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot there. That could be a whole webinar itself, just getting your board engaged. And
Yeah,
and I know I think is that one of the topics at our summit? I think it is, Gabby, right?
yeah, we
Um,
actually did do a webinar on it, about end
and we
of
did a
year
webinar too.
peer-to-peer fundraising
Yeah.
with boards. Yeah.
But I know that is you are not alone. That is unfortunately a terribly common problem, trying to get the board engaged. Now, sometimes that is out of your control a little bit, and we had a local food pantry, where a lot of their board was made up of people that actually had utilized their services. So they aren't necessarily people that have connections, of potential major donors, or nor is there capacity to give a lot, for them by themselves. I have seen in that case that organization created a secondary board that was really more fundraising specific, to really help them make those connections and to really try and help them fundraise. I'm not, again, I am not a consultant that's going to help you do that. There are whole uh, pe people's professions dedicated just to helping you deal with this because it is a problem. But what I do love about peer to peer is that it does allow board staff, other people who want to raise money on your behalf to do it in a much less intimidating way than, let's say, where I'm running a capital campaign and you're asking your board to be solicitors and go out and actually have lunch now, in those cases, you can create teams of solicitors and have your ED, your development director, go with them or something. But even then, it's intimidating for them. So the peer-to-peer platform does allow, in a much less intimidating way, for people to create fundraising pages by themselves, that will then help raise money on behalf of your organization. But they don't have to be face to face, right? They can say, hey, I'm raising money for XYZ organization, and they can just make a post on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever, and just put it out there. And then through that, those connections they have through those social media platforms, you're going to have that viral effect of it getting out to a lot more people. And it's also, you're not, I don't think, asking a whole lot from your board in that respect. But I don't know if I'm really answering the question, because I know that's can be a hard to untangle issue. And there are whole webinars, and like I said, I think we have a speaker just going to talk about that specifically at our summit. So I don't know, Greg, if you want to add any color to that too.
No, I think you covered it.
This question comes from Patricia. Phone calls are not working for us. I end up sending thank you emails because at least I know it may have gotten through to them. With Libunts, most of them give at the end of the year. Is it wise to reach out to those around September to say, we miss you, please come back?
Yeah, I would say yes. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense to start reaching out to them, to get them to try to come back before the end of the year. You know, there's waiting until the end of the year. Now you're competing with everybody else that's asking for that support. So we try to encourage people to start asking way earlier than the end of the year.
Yeah, I don't know, Greg. There are multiple, we all struggle with that, I think, on the connecting with our clients, even just trying to get them on the phone. And maybe you have insights into that, Greg. But I think that is, I think, why you, Greg, recommend it's a multi-communication approach, right? It's not just one.
Exactly. Exactly.
Greg, this question, I believe, is about Jay Melito and Associates. Who makes your outbound phone calls, volunteers or an in-house team?
It's an in-house team. We have staff members that have been trained for years on doing this. They've called for multiple types of clients in organizations across the country. So they're highly trained staff that does this. I mean, there's that highly trained side of it, so that they're carrying the right message on behalf of the organization. The other side is the legal side. I mean, we have to have our phone callers registered in a number of states that we're calling into. I mean, you can't just stick a volunteer on the phone and have them do that. They've got to be registered. So there's background checks involved and that kind of stuff as well. So they're not volunteers, no, full staff.
And then last question we have here, kind of in a different vein. What is the main scope of assessing the right grantees?
That's an interesting question. Grantees, to me, are the people you're giving money to. So if you're a grant giving organization, again, I'm not our personal expert, but that's typically through a committee that you've created that evaluates proposals, and it has making sure that the proposals are aligned with your mission, and then they go through a process. And there's software. We do actually have grant management software that can help you do that. If you're talking about grantors, people that if you're an organization looking for grant money, which is much more typical, then there are we do have tools to help you manage the grant process, but there are other solutions out there. I can't name it off the top of my head, that will actually provide services to help you find grantors, organizations that will give you money based off that are aligned with your mission, right? So that is the most important part, right? Is finding the grant giving organizations that are aligned with you and that would support the types of programs that you have. And there are softwares, solutions out there that allow you to help you figure that out. There's also consultants who will do that for you too. We actually have some, Gabby, I think, that we've recently done some webinars with as well.
All right, well, those were all of our questions. I know we're a little bit over time here. Thank you, Greg, for joining us. Thank you, Chris, as well. This was great information. Any final words or last minute thoughts to leave the audience with?
Greg, thank you very much for providing your insights. Really appreciate you being here today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. As I mentioned to Gabby and to Chris, this is my first webinar that I've ever done. So I hope everybody forgives me if I was stumbling through parts of it, but I appreciate the time and all the good feedback that everybody gave.
Yeah.
For all of you that are joining us, we hope to see you on our next Arriva webinar. We have a ton of great content. If you go on our website, underneath our resources tab, we have all the webinars we've ever done, lots of different topics about peer-to-peer board engagement. just to name a few. You will be receiving a copy of the PowerPoint deck as well as a recording of the webinar, so make sure to look out for that. Thank you all for joining us, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.